everyone, I'm Jen and welcome to my channel. I'm a woman in long-term recovery. I'm also a CARC, a CERPA, a rape crisis counselor, syringe peer, creator of Supplies for Life, and a whole bunch of other goodies. If you look at my description box down below, you'll find a link to Smack, the documentary that I was involved with. You will find a video that I did several months ago that explains what all those certifications mean in the state of New York. And you'll also find links to my Amazon wish list. I have go bags. I have harm reduction one that's available by request only. I use all that stuff to help people in my local community. Let's see what else. There's a whole bunch of stuff down there, so go take a gander. You'll find all my social media as well as right here. So in today's video, I want to kind of just jump right into it. Today, we are going to be discussing what active addiction really was like for me. And I hope this is going to be very relatable for a lot of people. Some people will never relate to me, and that's cool. And I'm just glad you're here and open-minded and willing to listen. You know, drug addiction doesn't start off bad. It starts off as a fun time, right? Because if it started off bad, nobody would continue it. Drug addiction started off for me as fun and a good time and cool and all the other cliche terms and words that we can use to describe what almost took my life from me. And I just never understood what addiction was. I was never properly taught about it. I was never really explained what it was. To me, addiction was alcoholic old white men. That I've said this before, you know, and I don't say that with any type of racism behind it at all. But to me, growing up, that was the only type of addiction that I ever heard of. You know, I never heard of, I loosely heard of like crack and heroin and things like that, but that didn't, you know, affect my family and anything. So it was taboo. It wasn't really spoken of, so to speak. And I had no idea what kind of fire I was holding my hand over. And we weren't a family that discussed many things. I think the only serious matter we ever really discussed was the simple fact that my sister had Down syndrome. And I was really unprepared for what real life was like. And it literally bashed me in the face, unfortunately. When I started experimenting in my 20s, which is crazy, right? I just was so naive and so eager to fit in and have any type of love in my life and feel a part of something that I took it anywhere I could get it. And, you know, hindsight. But I just was taken by such storm. And my first real drug of choice was cocaine. And I remember thinking like it was going to fix everything. And at the time, my mental health was shitty at best. I was newly in the world and unprepared and just not mentally stable the way I should have been for a girl my age. At 20 years old, I should have, you know, had some work experience and had some self-actualization and understanding of what the world was like somewhat. Obviously, I should still be naive in some spots, but not the way that I was. And as you guys all know, I started doing cocaine first, and I was just 21 and went from there. As the years progressed, my drug use continued. It got larger and larger and larger, and I started experimenting with other drugs, and then I found heroin. And I felt at home. I felt complete. I felt like I finally could see the things that I couldn't see and understand the things and be me. And I felt like I was in a warm hug all the time. And I know I'm not, please do not come for me. I am not glorifying drug use in any way, shape, or form. I will never do that. But I feel like this is something that really needs to be discussed, because when your mental health is down, the devil will get in. whatever the devil might look like to you. It doesn't have to be the actual devil. We're not, in church here. But when I say the devil will get in, heroin is the devil in every way, shape, or sense or form that you can potentially ever think of. Methamphetamines, cocaine, any mood altering substance is the devil because it comes in where you didn't know you needed it to, and it surrounds you and it makes you feel loved. It makes you feel pretty, handsome, tall, skinny, fat, whatever it is that is lacking in your life at that moment, it fills in those cracks. And it lies to you. And it tells you everything is okay and everything will be okay. And it's not. In looking back, I wish I had someone there to tell me the truth and to call me on my shit, but in a productive way, instead of a counterproductive way. Screaming at me and calling me a piece of shit, a liar, no good, whatever, disown, this, that tough love shit. Please, I beg of you, that works for nobody. All you do is create a bigger wedge in your loved one and yours life. So for me, addiction was absolutely life changing and life stopping. I think back sometimes on the things that I was involved with, or the things that I did, or the places I went, or the people I was around, and I don't know. It's just crazy. The more I did drugs, the worse my mental health got. The more I needed to do drugs. The more I did drugs, the worse my relationships got with everybody in my life, including my parents, my sister, myself, whoever I was in a relationship with. Friendships, there was no real friendships. We were using buddies. And the worst, I think this is the worst part. The more I did drugs, the worse my self-image became in my own eyes. And the worse my self-image became in my own eyes, the more I needed to numb that. So the more that I did drugs. The more that I did drugs, the more my body deteriorated, my skin changed and got worse, my hair changed, the smell of myself changed, the way I viewed things changed. I was dying, and I couldn't see that it was the addiction, it was the drugs that were killing me. I never wanted to say like, oh, I'm a drug addict or anything like that. And I remember one time during my meth addiction, I remember calling my DSS caseworker because we had Medicaid, we had government insurance, Bella and I. And she was cool and I kind of liked her. And I took a really large leap and I said to her, I think I have a problem and I think I need help. And she was like, what do you mean? And I said, well, I think I need to go to like a rehab or something. And she was like, you can't say that to me. And I was like, oh, okay. She was like, I suggest you call someone else and tell them that. She was like, I'm going to pretend like I didn't even hear you say that. And I was so scared after she said that because here I was thinking like this woman's kind of cool and I sort of trust her. And I sort of trust her, and she just shut me down like that. So never did that again. Back when I was getting sober, we didn't have recovery coaches or anyone who really gave shit, to be quite honest. It is only now with this new movement that people are starting to treat addicts that are active as human beings, and thank God. But my mental health was so poor. I actually used to think like if I get up and I straighten my hair and I put makeup on, I am okay. And no one's going to notice I'm dying. And I knew in my heart of hearts I was dying. I knew something was wrong, but I could not understand for the life of me. Like, I'm going to put a picture here for you guys so you can see. And I share this picture very, very difficultly. I keep it as a reminder. Keep it as a reminder that that's how my baby used to view me, and that's what she would see. And I remember one time she said to me, Mommy, I don't like that you're so skinny. I don't want you to die. And I still didn't say to myself, like, you need to go to rehab. You're dying. When I first got incarcerated in the Delaware County Jail, there was this one officer, and I'll never forget her. And I saw her a couple weeks ago, actually. She didn't see me, but I saw her. She was pumping gas, and I was sitting in the car. Jared was pumping my gas. She had such an impact in my life. She was so kind to me. She said, Jen, I used to go past your room and I used to take a double take, and I used to hold my breath when I would go by to make sure you were breathing because I was so afraid you were going to die. You were so skinny. You were so thin. And I remember the first time she strip searched me, it was super embarrassing because I was dying. I was literally skin and bones. And a few months went by and I had to go to court, and she strip searched me again. And she said, I know I'm not supposed to say this. She said, but seeing you like this makes me so happy. She said, you look alive again. My skin was gray. I had the arms of, like, I don't want to even insult a child and say a child. And my self view of myself, I didn't think I deserved to be loved. I didn't understand why Jared hadn't kicked me to the curb. I couldn't understand how people still talked to me because I didn't think I was worth anything. My mental health was so incredibly poor and low and in the trash that, in all sincerity, I really needed to go and be incarcerated, and kept my incarceration, albeit shitty because it was an incarceration. I was locked in for 65 days. And I think that was my higher power's way of protecting me. I know it sounds weird to say, but I say that for a reason. I say that because I could not be responsible for myself at that time, that I needed that protection of those four walls to sit and think and write things down and question things and put things into perspective and just really spend time with myself and no one else. Because if not, if I would have been out in GP, able to use the phone, I would have been able to call someone and get bailed out, and I would have went home, and I probably would have died. And looking back, I have 4 years next week. It's only 4 years. But in 4 years, my life has completely and totally changed. I look back at that girl who I was, and I feel so sad for her. She was so alone, even in a room full of people. The only thing she ever had that people wanted from her was drugs. I didn't have any real friends. I say this all the time. Jared and I were just roommates. Occasionally we're intimate with each other. There was the love that we have now is it's crazy. Back then it wasn't like that. We hardly talked to each other unless we had to. It was just, and I wish I could go back. I do like all these like trainings now and stuff, right? And a lot of them have like these, if you could go back 5, 10, 15 years ago and you could go talk to your former self, where would you go? And I know exactly where I would go, what time. I know it all. And I would go, and I did one the other day. I think I shared it with someone. I think I shared it with Sarah Warner, actually. It was a TikTok, and I'm going to go in and see if I can find it and share it with you, all of you. She's a therapist. She's this beautiful girl, red hair, and she does this one meditation or whatever you want to call it, where you go and you're quiet and you think back, and you go and you find your former self, and you go and you give them the love and answer them the questions that they need, and then you take them with you to the future. You show them what your life is like. Imagine if you could go back and love your active self enough and bring them into the future and show them what life could really be like. Man, that'd be powerful, huh? But everything happens for a reason, and we wouldn't all be here today if all those things didn't happen. But man, active use was horrible. I mean, like in hindsight, what it did to my mental well-being and my mental health, just, I was in a really lonely, dark place. Like, bad. I remember like boasting all this makeup, right? Because I thought like if I had the best, newest makeup or if my hair was always dyed and done, but yet I was wearing children's size clothing. It's crazy. I just really wanted to share this with you guys, especially considering I have 4 years coming up next week. Sometimes I think it's really healthy to go back and not reminisce, but remember. We get stuck sometimes on what reminiscing is and what remembering is. And to remember is to remember the feeling of it. When you reminisce, you glorify it and you remember the happy times. When you remember, like I always say that, like, I'll never forget, and I'll never forget. Because if I forget, a relapse is around the corner. And I just want to tell you all, thank you for being here with me today and processing this with me. I love you all. And remember, we recover loudly, so those behind us do not suffer in silence. Bye.